welcome to Second Watch, your direct line to the second mass. I'm Wil Wheaton. We have just watched the latest episode of Falling Skies and discovered that there are aliens, and then there are aliens. And tonight we have actor Moon Bloodgood with us to talk about survival, and writers Bradley Thompson and Devid Weddle to enlighten us on the creation of those awful, terrifying, gross, crawly things. Thanks a lot for being here, you guys. Good evening. Welcome. Good evening. We hear that the latest alien creature, the crawly, was Steven Spielberg's brainchild. So how do the crawlies differ from the other aliens we've seen so far?
They're smaller.
There's so many of them.
Yeah.
And they're so much quicker. Rather than dealing with one thing, there's just so many coming at you, just the mass of them. And they are pretty spooky looking.
Is it fun to sort of write for them as just sort of this like horde swarm of things? You just decide like, how far can we push this?
Well, that's always the thing in Falling Skies, is how far can we push this? How far can we get away from it? But each one of them has a name. They all have little names.
Really?
Oh, God. They do that.
Like, are they human names or alien names?
Bob, of course.
Bob the Crawly,
Bob
Ed the Crawly.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Fred,
you humanize
Will.
it. Yeah. He has relationships.
So we saw Anne as kind of a badass action hero tonight.
I like that you're calling her badass.
But this is really new, right? Because up until this point in the series, she has been very thoughtful and contemplative.
She is. She's definitely more maternal. She's the doctor. She was a pediatrician, so her nature is much more passive. She's sort of the glue, and she binds people together, but she's not one to kind of fight. But I think the circumstances inspire her to have to rise above her own like passive nature and become more aggressive. I love this episode because I get to be so much more physical. The medical stuff is so much more cerebral and it's harder for me as an actor, but all the physical stuff I love. I get to put a flamethrower together. Me and Seychelles and Maxim get to run and things are falling and things were sparking and we were screaming, and it just, you feel like you're in the elements and so much more powerful. So
you mentioned Seychelles, and I love the relationship between Lourdes and Anne. I absolutely love it. I mean, I love it all the way back to the first season.
Yay.
I love this sort of shifting relationship of like mother-daughter, big sister, little sister, and you guys have such a great chemistry. And
she would be she's such a sweet, wonderful being, and her and I, in the first season, you know, I was more maternal with the Mason kids, and her and our relationship was just building, but since she's sort of my medical assistant, she's, you know, my right arm, I think that this relationship, and it mimics our relationship in life. We do have this sort of sisterly relationship. She kind of keeps me youthful. We're always kind of dancing and singing, and we talk about all kinds of nonsense that girls talk about. But I think it's nice in Falling Skies to have that feminine element, because it is quite a masculine show, and there's a lot of human element, but the feminine connections, there's even a great scene between her and Sarah. You just need to see that just as a woman. And with her and I, we don't get over sentimental about it, but it's sweet. And she has such a sweetness about her. And you see a lot more of her this season.
When you guys are writing scenes for those two characters, do you lean toward mother-daughter? Do you lean toward sisters? Like, how do you see the relationship between those characters as writers?
We actually do say, well, okay, where are they at this moment? What's happened? Where are we going to try and take them? And what is the effect of, you know, her meltdown and you having to pull her out of it in this one?
She loses it and kind of gets to own her anger, and I think that's a real sign of people that are close when they get to have a fight, and then you see a resolve. And she's dealing with her own. You get to see her as a character really like fleshed out. Who is she? What does she do? You know, what's her past? What's her relationship to Brandon, and how she deals with his death? And I get to be someone she kind of takes that out on, and I think that's beautiful. That's very human.
There's a huge turn that she goes through, because she's a character that in the first season was very optimistic and holding on to her faith, and she goes through a tremendous traumatic loss in this show. That's pretty shattering, and one of the things we're proud of in the episode is there's a great moment where Moon tries to reassure her at the end of the show, and you know, it's not something that can be reached through saying the right phrase or having a good cry, and we felt that was a really great place to take that character. And
I love that monologue she gives, and she loved it too. And I'm speaking for her, but she gets to just talk about what it's like to really not have hope, which she is a hopeful character, and it was so deep and profound.
Would you talk a little bit about Jamil's death scene? I mean, so when he's on the other side of the door, oh, it's so great. It's so gross.
Look at the eyes. He fully committed.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 a.m. We were in this. I mean, was it haunted? I always want
well, you went up there.
Yeah, we were shooting in this hospital that I tried to really find some like spirits.
Hospitals are always creepy.
It was this old abandoned hotel. I of course like flanked 2 crew guys with me and made them. We like went into all these different. I didn't see anything, but it was 3 a.m. It was really, we were all tired, and he had to do this gruesome scene. And there's some actors that are afraid of. He fully embraced it.
Yeah.
And the CGI has to be put in, so there's nothing there. But he goes for it. He's completely bloodied up. He's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it was heart-wrenching for all of us to experience it.
It says so much about him as an actor that he can
absolutely.
give you that.
Because then it makes you as an actor be able to respond to it.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to sit there and mimic that things are crawling out of your mouth. I don't know what reference you have for that.
Right.
But he did a great job.
There was a moment up there, because I was watching this, and Holly Dale had it all set up, and he said, okay, he's going to hang on the door there, and you 2 are going to come up and run up and see him. And so, all right, cool, blocked it. And then he's hanging on the doorway, and roll, action, and he starts to shudder, and you guys came up, and it was like magic, because you was going, oh my God.
Yeah, he was really going for it.
As soon as I saw him on the other side of the door, I was like, oh, he's full of bugs.
Yeah,
I hope the bugs come out of him.
You saw that because he's acting strange, and he's mumbling because he's fighting that they're inside of him.
Yeah.
And then you see Maxim go over to the door, and he's curious, and you hear the sounds.
Yeah.
It's a good moment.
It's one of those few moments that happens rarely in TV where, like, as an audience, I'm a little bit ahead of the characters.
Right.
And it's that thing that Hitchcock said about putting the bomb, showing the audience that the bomb's under the table.
They know before the characters know.
It was great. It was really well done.
That's good. That's like horror
There's
film.
something bad behind that door.
Yeah. It was the suspense that was created was fantastic. Devid, the Overlord, talked to Tom about plans for a correction. So, what does he have in mind for Planet Earth?
I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about it.
Yeah?
I mean, they have a tendency to talk like a lot of conquerors in euphemisms, and so correction sounds very ominous to me. And I'm as worried as you are about what that might mean.
So I sort of view these aliens as they're absolutely conquerors, but I see these moments with some of the skidders, especially like when kids are being harnessed or when they went to rescue Ben in the first season. They almost seem maternal. There's the sense that there's something more to some of them than just horrible conquerors. And then you see this Overlord, and he's such a dick.
Look at him. Look at his profile.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
He's like, I have no nose. He's just not happy. Look at him.
Yet he feels that he has a greater. Karen articulates it in the episode.
Yeah.
A greater understanding of how all things are connected, and because he has this greater cosmic understanding, he has a sense of entitlement to treat other creatures, other life forms, as not as worthy of him, as things he can manipulate to his own ends, because their species is so obviously a master race.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with real human beings. No.
We don't do any of that. Absolutely not.
Well, listen, I've been involved in science fiction as an actor since I was 14, but I've been a science fiction fan since I knew how to read. And one of the things I really love about science fiction that I think is, good science fiction is entertaining. Great science fiction makes you think about things that might be a little uncomfortable. And do you look at that as writers when you're thinking about the motivations for the Overlord? Are you looking at historically like totalitarians? You think about that?
Sure, we thought about there's an ancient Greek play, the Malian Dialogues, which is about a city-state in which was caught between the Athenians and the Spartans, and it's a whole dialogue between a conqueror and the people that refused to be conquered. And so, yes, the writing room talks a great deal about history of various human races and what we've done to each other, and obviously then that is a model for the overlords and how they, what their attitudes are, their philosophy.
One last question before we go to the audience.
Sure.
How grateful were you to be done with like the big flamethrower crawly firefight thing at the end of the day, because maintaining that level of intensity as an actor, I was exhausted, and I only watched the thing.
But you know what's interesting? I don't know if you can relate to this. Every actor, I think, has certain scenes that they like more than others and certain things they like to do. For me, the action stuff invigorates me.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted, but it's that really good, like bittersweet, like you're so tired, but you feel so fulfilled. The scenes that are harder, I think, are the scenes that are emotional. I remember, you know, there was a scene in the finale, and I can't give too much away, but it was really taxing, and I felt really emotionally drained. So the action stuff just gives me energy. Sometimes the emotional stuff hits really in a raw place, and I find I'm a little more tired. And I think for each actor, it's different, you know? So I loved doing that stuff. I was like, man, this is the days when I was doing like the action. I felt like I was home again, so.
So do you want to see Anne maybe
I'm not
out
gonna let
there
you
on the
finish
show
that.
a little more next season?
I am right now. I don't get to go in the room, but I am going to pitch that please Anne gets to like, she doesn't suddenly need to be this character that's, you know, got 3 guns and is a badass, but I think it's great when you see women in a realistic way get to be empowered, and it's not really my character to be that girl, which that's why I like the character. It's something different for me. But yes, that would be great, Bradley and David.
Audience, do we have any questions from the audience for the panel today? Yes.
Hi, this question is for Moon. So we're starting to see Tom and Anne's relationship getting more serious now, and I'm wondering how you think they're able to make romance work in such tough times.
Thank you for asking about that. I love our stuff. It's very subtle. We don't, I don't feel like we're over sentimental about the relationship. What's the priority is the survival, and then the romance is sort of this secondary thing that happens, just 2 people who need to connect. And it's great because even in one of the episodes, one of my favorites is also 206, we get to have our first fight. And I remember Noah saying to me, it's a very adult situation where we get to actually, you know, go to head about things, and he calls me by his wife's name by accident, but just real things that happen in relationships. We're in the middle of a fight and he calls me his wife's name. So I think that relationship is a very subtle, gradual, growing relationship, but it's very sweet and not over the top, because I don't know, when I love science fiction, and when I see a science fiction movie or television and there's all this, you know, love stuff going, it just feels a little bit like unrealistic. So I think it's going to get better and better. And then it's a lot more intense too than first season.
But I get the sense that, in a way, that each of them is still in love with the person they lost.
I would say that's more Noah's character. I think Anne is just blindly in love. I think she puts Tom first, and she's waiting for him because his 3 sons are there, because my children are not there. I think he feels a guilt between being caught in his old life and then being in the present with someone new, especially with his kids being able to see it. So we shall see.
We're sadly out of time, but I want to say while you're here, there's an older episode where you go to you're still in the school, and there's a scene where you tell us that you don't have pictures of your son to put on the board, crying like someone who has been punched in the face and filled with cry juice. I'm a dad, and just you forced me to like confront, oh my God, what if something happens to one of my kids?
And you don't have anything
it was so powerful, and it was great. It was such a pleasure to watch.
That was so well written, and it was really emotional for me. And I was like, I couldn't even, I was in that ugly cry where you can't catch your breath.
Yeah, I know. It was hard to watch and hard to internalize. So thanks for that.
And as an actor, when another actor says it to you, that's just the icing on the cake.
Oh, well, thanks a lot.
And I'm such a fan of your work. Like, go Star Trek.
Oh, stop it. That's really awesome. Thank you.
Oh, shucks.
Thanks a lot for being here tonight, you guys. Thank you for an incredible episode.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. In 2 weeks, we will be talking to actors Colin Cunningham, Maxim Knight, and writer Heather Renier. In the meantime, you can check out more trivia and get behind-the-scenes information from Falling Skies right here on TNTdrama.com. Tune in to TNT in 2 weeks at 9 p.m. for a new episode of Falling Skies, and as soon as it is over, run to the internet and log on to TNTdrama.com for a new episode of Second Watch. Until then, keep the resistance strong.